Marcus Bennett was 42 years old, and for over a decade he had been the quiet foundation beneath his wife's rise to power. While Lauren chased the executive position she had dreamed about since her 20s, Marcus handled the money, raised their daughter Chloe, and kept their home running with the same steady discipline he used on every project he had ever completed. He never argued. He never demanded recognition. He simply trusted in what they were building side by side. The morning after Lauren received final approval from the board, she stepped into his home workspace dressed sharply for her first official day at the top. Without hesitation, she placed a sealed envelope on his desk and calmly told him she had prepared everything weeks earlier. Separation documents. Then she turned and walked out for work without another word. Marcus sat there for a moment, staring at the envelope as the quiet hum of the house settled around him. When he finally opened it, the details inside revealed far more than a simple split. It showed careful planning, timing, intent. This wasn't sudden. This had been unfolding behind the scenes for nearly 2 years. He leaned back slowly, his jaw tightening, then reached for his laptop. His fingers moved with practiced precision as he logged into the shared investment account he had overseen since the day they got married. The screen loaded, and there it was. Transfer after transfer. Small amounts at first, then larger ones. Gradual. Intentional. A total of $341,000 quietly moved out over time. Marcus exhaled slowly, rubbing his forehead as the realization settled deeper. While he packed school lunches, balanced accounts, and stayed silent because he believed in her dream, she had already calculated his worth and made her exit plan. He closed the laptop gently, not in anger, but in understanding. She thought she knew exactly what Marcus Bennett was worth. She was mistaken. Now before we continue, drop a comment telling me where you're watching from and make sure you follow, because tomorrow's story is one you don't want to miss. Morning sunlight streamed through the wide kitchen windows of the Bennett home in Cascade Heights. Marcus had installed those windows himself a few summers back, along with the custom cabinetry and polished stone countertops that reflected the soft glow of the hanging lights. Everything in that kitchen carried his signature, carefully planned, precisely executed, built to endure. He moved through his routine effortlessly. The gentle crackle of eggs cooking blended with the low volume of a news broadcast playing from the living room. The kitchen was his space. It had been for years. Every detail was familiar to him, from the slight resistance in the refrigerator hinge he kept meaning to repair to the exact heat setting needed to get bacon just right. "Dad, can you look at this?" Chloe called out, seated at the island with her homework spread in front of her. She took a bite of toast while tapping her pencil against the paper, her neatly braided hair swinging slightly with the motion. "Of course," Marcus replied, sliding the eggs onto a plate before stepping closer. He glanced over her math problems, his eyes quickly identifying the pattern. Numbers had always been something they shared, a quiet bond between them. She had inherited his ability to see connections where others saw confusion. Footsteps echoed down the hallway. Sharp, measured. Lauren. She walked past them, composed and polished in a dark tailored suit, her presence strong yet distant, like someone already living in another world. The scent of expensive perfume lingered faintly as she moved toward the counter. Marcus gestured slightly. "There's coffee." "Thanks," she said, already reaching for a travel cup, barely making eye contact. Her mind was somewhere else. Meetings, strategies, expectations. A future that no longer seemed to include them. Chloe looked up, hopeful. "Mom, will you be home for dinner? We can celebrate." Lauren paused just long enough to respond. "I'll probably be working late, sweetheart." "Big debt." She leaned down, placing a quick kiss on Chloe's forehead, brief, careful, leaving no trace, then straightened and checked her phone. Marcus watched quietly as he rinsed the dishes, his movements calm and efficient. Over the years, he had gradually learned to take up less space, to operate in the background as Lauren's presence grew larger and more demanding. It hadn't been a decision. It had simply become their reality. Once Chloe left for school, Marcus returned to his office. The sunlight stretched across his desk, warming the polished surface of a piece he had restored himself. His laptop displayed a consulting proposal he had been reviewing, work he still took on between managing the home and being present for Chloe's activities. He adjusted his chair, focusing. Then he heard it again. Lauren's heels. Different this time. Deliberate. He looked up. She stood in the doorway, framed by the hallway light, every detail of her appearance reflecting the authority of her new position. Her posture was flawless, her expression unreadable. For a moment, she said nothing. Then she stepped forward and placed the envelope on his desk. The soft sound it made felt heavier than it should have. "I had these prepared last month," she said evenly. "This hasn't been working for a while." Marcus held her gaze, searching for something. Emotion, hesitation, anything, but found none. And just like that, she turned and walked away. The sound of her steps faded. The front door closed. Silence filled the house. Marcus remained seated, staring at the envelope. It was simple, clean, almost clinical in its presentation. He didn't reach for it immediately. He didn't need to. He already understood what it meant. This wasn't confusion. This wasn't shock. This was assessment. The kind of stillness that comes before action. The kind a builder knows well. When you pause to evaluate damage before deciding whether to repair or to rebuild entirely. Minutes passed. The sunlight shifted across the desk, catching the edge of the envelope. His coffee sat untouched beside him, slowly losing its warmth. Marcus finally leaned forward, his movements controlled, his mind sharp and calculating. Whatever this was, it required precision. The silence around him wasn't empty. It was charged, like the air before something begins. He picked up the envelope and opened it with a clean, deliberate tear, like the start of a careful operation. Marcus pulled the stack of documents from the envelope, each sheet smooth and untouched, free from the creases or smudges that usually came with rushed choices. His eyes scanned every line with discipline, the same careful focus he applied when reviewing building plans. The wording was sharp and emotionless. Each section broke down their 12 years of marriage like items listed in an inventory clearance. The house, the one he had remodeled piece by piece, was assigned to Lauren. Full custody of Chloe was granted to her, while his time with his own daughter was limited to alternating weekends and one evening during the week. The support calculations were based only on his part-time consulting income, as if the professional certification framed on his wall meant nothing at all. Marcus leaned back slightly, exhaling through his nose. This wasn't something written overnight. This was design. Every clause had been engineered with intention. Every detail measured, positioned, finalized. The date at the bottom matched what she had said. These papers had been prepared a month ago, while she was still smiling in the mornings, still asking about Chloe's homework, still pretending everything was intact. He placed the documents down slowly, then turned toward his laptop. The familiar banking dashboard appeared on the screen. He had managed their finances long before their wedding, keeping detailed records with the accuracy his profession required. He clicked into their investment portfolio, the one they had built for the future, for retirement, for Chloe's education. The balance didn't look right. Not even close. Marcus frowned slightly and leaned closer, refreshing the page before opening the transaction history. He expanded the timeline to include the last 2 years. What he saw made his fingers pause over the keyboard. The withdrawals were subtle, almost invisible. Every few months, just after his quarterly reviews, amounts between $13,000 and $19,000 had quietly disappeared. The timing was deliberate, placed carefully in moments when his attention would naturally be elsewhere. Each transaction was small enough to avoid raising immediate concern, but together, they totaled $341,000 over 22 months. Marcus clicked deeper, tracing where the funds had gone. His eyes narrowed slightly as the destination account appeared on the screen. A shared account, under Lauren and Ryan Whitaker. The name hit him, not with shock, but with clarity. Ryan Whitaker, the finance director she had hired just over 2 years ago. Marcus sat back slowly, connecting the timeline in his mind. The transfers had started not long after Ryan entered the picture. This wasn't recent. This wasn't impulsive. This had been unfolding quietly for nearly 2 years, while he cooked breakfast, helped with homework, and maintained the home she was already preparing to leave. Marcus reached for his phone. His movements were steady. He scrolled to Daniel's contact. Daniel had been his closest friend since college, long before Lauren, long before any of this. He was also one of the most skilled forensic accountants in the state. The call connected. "Hey," Daniel answered. "Dan," Marcus said calmly. "I need you to come by tonight. Bring your laptop." There was a brief pause on the other end. "Everything all right?" Marcus glanced at the screen again, then at the papers beside him. "No," he replied evenly. "But it will be. Just come by after work." The rest of the day passed in a strange quiet. Marcus moved through the house slowly, almost like he was seeing it for the first time. His fingers brushed against the things he had built, the shelves in Chloe's room, the deck out back, the kitchen designed for family gatherings. Each piece carried effort, time, care, and now perspective. That evening, after Daniel reviewed the accounts, confirmed the pattern, and promised to investigate further, Marcus picked up his phone again. He dialed Lauren. This time, his voice shifted just slightly. Controlled. Calculated. "I saw the documents," Marcus said, letting a faint tremor slip into his tone. I need some time to think." He paused, as if searching for words. "I don't understand, Lauren. 12 years, and we didn't even try to fix things? Counseling, anything. I love you. I thought we were okay." There was silence. 3 seconds. Then Lauren spoke, her voice softer now, almost reassuring. "Take all the time you need," she said gently. "I know this isn't easy." The relief in her voice was unmistakable. She believed him. "Okay," Marcus replied quietly. They ended the call. He placed the phone down with care, his expression unchanged. In the stillness of his office, surrounded by everything he had built and everything that had been quietly taken apart, Marcus sat without moving. But this wasn't defeat. This was clarity. Sharp, focused, unshaken. The next evening, Daniel's car pulled into the driveway just after 7 p.m. Marcus opened the door and led him straight inside, guiding him to the kitchen table where several printed statements were already arranged beside his laptop. The overhead lights cast sharp shadows across the pages, making every number stand out. "Thanks for coming," Marcus said evenly, pulling out a chair. He gestured toward the documents. "I need you to look at this." Daniel set his laptop down and sat, his expression composed. He had known Marcus long enough to recognize this version of him. Calm, precise, operating purely on logic. This wasn't emotion. This was strategy. Daniel opened his computer, then looked up. "All right," he said. "Start from the beginning." Marcus walked Daniel through the evidence with the same level of detail he used when explaining project plans to clients. He started with the divorce documents, then transitioned to the financial records. His finger followed the sequence of transactions on the screen, each one landing neatly between his quarterly reviews. 341,000, Marcus said calmly. Over 22 months, always between $13,000 and $19,000. Always timed right after I completed the quarterly household review. Daniel's hands moved quickly across his keyboard, pulling data, cross-checking records, running searches. The room remained quiet except for the soft tapping of keys and the steady hum of the refrigerator nearby. After a few minutes, Daniel leaned forward slightly. "The receiving account," he said, "is jointly held. Lauren Bennett and Ryan Whitaker. Opened 26 months ago, right after he joined the company." Marcus nodded once. "Can you map the full pattern?" Daniel didn't look up. "Give me an hour." While Daniel worked, Marcus prepared coffee. His movements were smooth, automatic, pouring, stirring, setting cups down, but something about it felt different now. Every familiar action carried a new weight, like he was moving through a space that no longer meant what it once did. He had stood in this same kitchen thousands of times, unaware that, piece by piece, things were being taken apart behind his back. 2 hours later, Daniel turned his laptop around. "I've got it," he said. The timeline was clear. The transfers were deliberate, structured to avoid attention. The account activity showed consistent interactions between Lauren and Ryan. Restaurant bills, hotel bookings, weekend trips labeled as business travel. Everything aligned. The personal betrayal and the financial deception had been running side by side, carefully coordinated. "I know a strong attorney," Daniel said. "Rachel Donovan. She specializes in high-asset divorces and financial misconduct cases. You want me to call her?" Marcus nodded slightly. "Yes, but tell her I'm not ready to act yet. I want everything documented first." Rachel arrived the next morning, her briefcase filled with files from cases not unlike this one. She spread the separation documents across the kitchen table beside Daniel's financial report. Her review was quick but thorough, her eyes scanning with practiced efficiency. After a few minutes, she looked up. "She made 3 major errors," Rachel said. Marcus remained standing, listening. "First, she underestimated your earning capacity. Your credentials and consulting background alone make her support calculations unrealistic." She tapped the documents lightly. "Second, she assumed you don't have independent assets or a professional network outside the marriage." Another pause. "And third, she committed documented financial misconduct by transferring shared assets without disclosure." Marcus crossed his arms slightly. "What do you recommend?" Rachel stacked the papers neatly. "Don't sign anything. Don't respond yet. Let her believe you're overwhelmed, that you're processing this slowly. Every day she thinks you're inactive gives us more time to build a stronger position." Marcus absorbed her words, then turned toward the stairs. "Give me a moment," he said. He walked quietly up to the second floor, his steps barely making a sound on the carpet he had installed himself. Chloe's bedroom door was slightly open. He paused in the hallway, watching her sleep peacefully. For a brief moment, everything else faded. Then reality returned. He stood there a second longer before turning back downstairs. When he entered the kitchen again, his expression had shifted, focused, steady. "She filed before she thought I'd look," Marcus said quietly. "Let's make sure she keeps thinking that." The next morning, sunlight filtered into Marcus's home office, stretching across his desk. With Chloe safely at school, he opened the bottom drawer of his filing cabinet and pulled out a thick folder labeled Property and Investments. The folder was dense, years of documentation, carefully organized. He spread everything out across his desk. Bank records, tax filings, consulting agreements, property documents, a full timeline of his financial life. And buried within it, something Lauren had never paid attention to: a deed. A commercial property located on the west side of the city. Marcus picked it up, his memory shifting back 6 years. His consulting work had surged unexpectedly back then, large projects lining up at just the right time, creating a period where his income had nearly tripled. He remembered mentioning it casually one evening. Lauren had barely looked up from her phone. The property had been a calculated move. The area wasn't developed yet, empty storefronts, uncertain plans, but Marcus had seen the long-term potential. It was what he did, analyzing structures, predicting growth. He had purchased the building outright. $390,000 in cash. No loans. No shared funds. He flipped to the most recent appraisal. The area had transformed exactly as expected. New businesses. Increased demand. Rising property values. His building, now fully renovated and leased to 2 thriving tenants, was valued at approximately $1.2 million. The rental income had been steady, covering all expenses and improvements independently. Marcus picked up his phone and called Rachel. "The commercial property," he said. "I need confirmation on its status." He listened as she reviewed the records. "The deed predates your marriage by over a year," Rachel said. Paid in full. No shared funds used for upkeep. No joint debt attached. A brief pause. That asset is entirely yours. Marcus nodded slightly, even though she couldn't see him. He ended the call and returned his attention to the desk. Then he opened his laptop and began sending emails. Short, direct, professional. Messages to former clients, colleagues, firms he had worked with before scaling back. The replies came quickly. They remembered him. More importantly, they trusted his work. One firm had been trying to bring him on for months. Their current project, a multi-million-dollar municipal contract, required exactly his expertise. His phone buzzed again and again. Opportunities, connections, everything he had built professionally was still intact. Another detail Lauren had overlooked. Marcus leaned back in his chair, looking at the documents spread before him. Years of discipline, strategy, quiet growth, all of it unseen. He thought about Lauren sitting in her executive office, confident in her assumptions. She had looked at his reduced workload and seen limitation. She had seen his focus on family and mistaken it for lack of ambition. She had misunderstood patience for weakness. Marcus gathered the documents carefully, placing them back into the folder. He positioned the property deed on top, its meaning now unmistakable. He closed the folder slowly. "I was never small," he said quietly into the empty room. "You just stopped paying attention." Later that afternoon, Marcus arrived at Rachel's downtown office, a corner suite in a modern high-rise with wide views of the city skyline. He entered carrying organized files and his laptop. He began setting everything up on the conference table, documents arranged by category, each section clear and accessible. "Walk me through everything," Rachel said, settling into her chair with a notepad. Marcus nodded and began. "I scaled back about 5 years ago to support Lauren's schedule," he explained, laying out contracts and client references. "But I never stopped. These are my major projects over the last decade." He slid a document forward. "This municipal infrastructure project, I led the structural analysis team. The client still reaches out regularly." Rachel reviewed the materials carefully, making notes as she examined each piece of evidence. "Your earning potential is far greater than what she outlined in her filing," Rachel said, reviewing the documents again. "With these contracts and client relationships, we can clearly establish your actual professional value." She looked up at Marcus. "She built her entire case on the assumption that you permanently limited yourself." "That's not everything," Marcus replied, opening the second file. He carefully laid out the commercial property records, the original deed, renovation details, tenant leases, and the most recent valuation. "I bought this 13 months before we got married. Paid in full. No loans. The rental income has covered every expense since." Rachel's expression sharpened as she reviewed the paperwork. "This is completely separate from marital assets," she said. "The timing and the lack of shared funds used for maintenance make it entirely yours." She flipped through the appraisal. "The current value is substantial." Did she know about this? Marcus shook his head slightly. "She never asked. I mentioned it once, but by then, she wasn't interested in anything outside her own path." Rachel nodded, then reached for Daniel's financial report. "And these transfers," she continued, 22 months of structured withdrawals, carefully timed to avoid detection. "This isn't just a divorce issue. This is financial misconduct. We can pursue full recovery, possibly more." As they reviewed the documents, Marcus's phone buzzed on the table. He glanced at the screen. An email from Andrew Chun, senior partner at one of the largest infrastructure firms in the region. Marcus opened it quickly, scanning the message. A new contract, 2-year engagement, multi-million-dollar value, potential for long-term partnership. Rachel noticed his reaction. "Good news?" she asked. "Timing couldn't be better," Marcus replied. "How do you want to handle it?" she asked. Marcus typed a brief, professional response, requesting a 2-week hold while he handled a personal matter. He set the phone down. "We don't reveal this yet," he said calmly. "Let her keep believing what she assumed about my career." Rachel gave a small approving nod. You understand strategy, she said. Now, regarding these transfers, we need to align the timeline with her career progression. If we show that her rise coincided with the financial misconduct, it strengthens everything. They spent the next hour mapping out their approach. Rachel stood at a whiteboard, drawing connections between the financial records and the broader pattern of behavior. Your wife made two major mistakes, she said finally. She assumed you wouldn't look closely, and she underestimated your independent financial position. Marcus gathered his documents carefully. She's been making assumptions about me for years, he said. Let's give her a little more time to keep doing that. As he left Rachel's office, he pulled out his phone and called Daniel. I need you to go deeper into her company, Marcus said. Focus on the financial structure around her promotion. Look for anything unusual, especially tied to Ryan's department. You think there's more? Daniel asked. Marcus stepped outside, his voice steady. People who get comfortable taking what isn't theirs rarely stop at one place. Daniel exhaled softly. Give me a week. Take 3 days, Marcus replied. 3 days later, Marcus's phone lit up. Daniel, we need to talk, he said. In person. Tonight. That evening, they sat at the kitchen table again. The house was quiet, the faint sound of the dishwasher running in the background. Upstairs, Chloe slept peacefully, unaware of everything shifting beneath the surface. Daniel spread out several documents. This goes beyond your personal accounts, he said quietly. Way beyond. Marcus leaned forward. Her company is preparing for a public offering within the next 18 months, Daniel continued. But there's a problem with their disclosures. He pointed to a series of highlighted entries. When they structured her promotion, there were transactions routed through a vendor account. It looks normal on the surface, operational expenses. He slid another sheet across the table. But when you trace the money, it was used to clear personal debts. Marcus's expression didn't change, but his eyes sharpened. Whose debts? Lawrence. Ryan's, Daniel said. Over $900,000. Marcus leaned back slowly. And this happened during pre-offering preparation, he said. Which makes it corporate fraud. Daniel nodded. And these transactions required high-level approval. Marcus's mind moved quickly, connecting everything. She treated the company the same way, he said quietly. Like something to take from. Daniel added. I know someone who specializes in this type of corporate compliance. We can explore options, informally. Marcus nodded once. Do it. But keep it quiet for now. He looked down at the documents again, seeing not just numbers, but leverage. Weak points. Opportunities. I need to speak with her father, Marcus said. The next morning, Marcus drove to the home where Lauren had grown up. The place held memories, family dinners, conversations, moments that now felt distant. Her father answered the door. Can we talk? Marcus asked. They sat in a quiet study filled with books and framed achievements. Marcus didn't bring out documents. He didn't accuse. He simply asked, Did you know she had been planning this for a while? Silence filled the room. A long pause. Her father didn't answer, but the look on his face said enough. Marcus stood. Thank you for your time, he said sincerely. That was all he needed. Later that evening, after Daniel confirmed that his contact was open to a quiet conversation about the company's compliance issues, Marcus sat alone in his office. The house was silent again. He spread everything out across his desk. The financial records, the property documents, the consulting contracts, the corporate findings, every piece of information, every advantage. He sat there, studying it all, not overwhelmed, not angry, focused. He had spent years building structures, stability, a life for his daughter. Now, he would apply that same patience and precision to what came next. No rushed moves, no emotional reactions. Every step would be deliberate. Lauren had underestimated him for years. She had seen only what she wanted to see. She had no idea what he was capable of. 2 weeks after handing him the papers, Marcus received a message from her. We should talk about transitioning the household. Coffee tomorrow? I've also been looking at some rental options for you. Marcus read the message twice. Not our household. The household. He replied simply, agreeing to meet at a quiet cafe near her office. The next morning, he arrived early. He ordered 2 coffees, hers exactly the way she liked it, and chose a table by the window. When Lauren walked in, she carried herself with quiet confidence. "I got your usual," Marcus said, sliding the cup toward her. She looked surprised, then pleased. "Thank you," she said, sitting down. "I appreciate how calm you've been about everything." Marcus nodded. "I've had time to think," he said. "The most important thing is making sure Chloe feels secure." Lauren visibly relaxed. "That's exactly what I wanted to discuss," she said. "With my schedule being demanding right now, we'll need to structure custody carefully." "We can work around your schedule," Marcus replied smoothly. "Alternating weekends, evenings when you're available. Chloe understands you're busy." For a brief moment, something flickered in Lauren's expression. Then it disappeared. "That sounds reasonable," she said, pulling out her phone. She began outlining plans. About the house. About his living situation. About his next steps. Marcus listened carefully, nodding, asking thoughtful questions, playing his part perfectly. He watched her become more comfortable, more certain, more convinced. After about 40 minutes, they stood to leave. Lauren lightly touched his arm. "This means a lot," she said, handling this like adults. Marcus smiled. The same calm, steady smile he had worn for years. "I just want what's best for everyone," he said quietly. As soon as Lauren left the cafe, she called Ryan. Marcus knew this because Daniel had already gained access to her call logs days earlier. The call lasted 4 minutes. Later that afternoon, Daniel forwarded a transcript. "He's handling it better than I thought," Lauren's voice read. "I told you. He doesn't really push back." Marcus stared at the screen for a moment, then closed the file without reacting. That same day, he finalized the infrastructure contract he had been holding, valued at $2.3 million over 2 years, with partnership potential. He printed the signed agreement and filed it in his home office, placing it alongside the property records and everything else Lauren had never bothered to notice. Rachel called shortly after. "The formal disclosure meeting is set for Friday at 10 a.m., she said. "Everything is ready. The financial report, property documentation, earning analysis." "And the company materials?" Marcus asked. "Prepared." Marcus glanced out the window at the yard he had designed himself, the flower beds he and Chloe had planted together. "How long once we begin?" he asked. Rachel paused briefly, maybe 30 minutes before her attorney asks for a break. "They won't get one," Marcus replied calmly. He ended the call and sat quietly. 30 minutes, he repeated under his breath. 12 years, clarified in 30 minutes. Not undone. Rachel had corrected earlier. Understood. Friday morning arrived clear and still. Marcus adjusted his tie in the elevator mirror as it rose toward the office floor. Rachel stood beside him, her briefcase neatly organized. Neither of them spoke. There was nothing left to prepare. Inside the conference room, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city. Marcus helped arrange the documents on the polished table, financial reports to one side, property files in the center, company materials on the other. Every page labeled, every detail precise. "Need water?" Rachel asked. "I'm fine," Marcus said, taking his seat. At exactly 10 a.m., Lauren walked in with her attorney, Charles Whitman, from a well-known firm. She carried herself with the calm confidence of someone expecting a simple conclusion. "Good morning," Whitman said. "Let's begin with asset review." "Of course," Rachel replied, sliding the first folder across. Whitman opened it and paused. Marcus watched the shift in his expression as he read through the earning capacity analysis. Contracts, testimonials, ongoing opportunities. Lauren leaned in slightly, frowning. This wasn't what she expected. Rachel continued, placing the next set of documents on the table. "This is the deed and current valuation of Mr. Bennett's commercial property, purchased prior to the marriage. Current value, approximately $1.2 million. with active rental income. Lauren looked up sharply. What property? Marcus spoke calmly. The one you never asked about. Rachel didn't pause. She placed the signed consulting contract forward. Mr. Bennett's current engagement. 3 years, multi-million-dollar value, with partnership consideration. Whitman picked up his pen quickly. But Rachel wasn't done. She opened the final folder. 22 months of structured transfers from joint accounts into a separate account held by Lauren Bennett and Ryan Whitaker, she said, totaling $341,000. Whitman straightened. We'd like a short break. No, Rachel said simply. We're not finished. She placed the final document down. Company records. Financial irregularities. Undisclosed transactions. This material has been reviewed, she continued. No formal action has been taken. That decision remains with Mr. Bennett. The room went silent. Lauren looked at Marcus. Really looked at him. For the first time in years, she saw something different. Not the quiet man she had overlooked, but someone steady, certain, in control. Marcus met her gaze. I supported everything you built, he said calmly. I asked for nothing. While you were planning this, I was still showing up, still believing. He paused slightly. I see everything now, and I need you to understand who you chose to underestimate. He stood, adjusted his jacket, and walked out. Rachel remained behind to handle the rest. Lauren sat still, her composure fading. Across from her, Whitman spoke in low, controlled tones about damage control. But she barely heard him. What settled over her wasn't regret. It was realization. By Monday morning, Rachel called. They want to settle, she said. Quickly. I figured, Marcus replied, reviewing project notes at his kitchen table. Negotiations moved fast. Whitman, fully aware of the exposure his client faced, avoided resistance. Each issue resolved cleanly under the weight of evidence. Marcus retained the family home. The financial settlement included full recovery of the transferred funds, plus additional compensation. Custody arrangements shifted entirely. Marcus was granted primary custody of Chloe. Lauren's schedule adjusted around his. At the same time, internal consequences unfolded within her company. An audit was initiated. Ryan Whitaker was removed within days. Lauren's position remained, but under strict oversight. The company's public offering plans were quietly paused. No headlines. No public statements. Just controlled decisions behind closed doors. Weeks later, Marcus sat in Rachel's office reviewing the final documents. He signed each page carefully. Congratulations, Rachel said. Thank you, Marcus replied. He left and drove straight to Chloe's school. She ran toward the car, smiling. Is everything okay, Dad? She asked. Marcus looked at her and smiled, genuinely. Everything is exactly where it should be. 9 months later, their new home stood fully restored. Marcus had rebuilt it slowly, weekends, evenings, one careful step at a time. Inside, Chloe sat at the kitchen island, focused on her homework. Need help? He asked. She shook her head. I think I've got it. He smiled, making coffee as sunlight filled the room. The business had grown beyond expectations. New projects, new partnerships. The property continued generating steady income. Life had expanded, not rushed, not forced, just built properly. Evenings were simple. Dinners, conversations, quiet moments. No noise, no chaos, just structure, just peace. One evening, sitting on the back porch, Marcus's phone buzzed. A news alert. He glanced at it once. CEO steps down amid internal review. He set the phone aside without a second thought. It no longer mattered. He looked out at the yard, the garden, the life he was still shaping. Everything steady, everything earned. And for the first time in a long time, he felt completely free. I hope you enjoyed this story. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss the next one.